Hello, everyone. It's Jill here with Jamie on Heads and Dovetails. But then, of course, you'll have known that because you've actually clicked on it. And here we are doing another episode, Jamie. How are you, first of all? Are you okay?
You know, Jill, I'm great. I'm great. You
Good.
know what? Just getting the self-assessment stuff. I don't do self-assessment. I give it to the accountant. I get very stressed in January,
Right.
and it's gone now. And he's fabulous, and I love this old bloke, and he does a brilliant job for me. And I feel that January is sort of mine now. I've
Okay.
got near the end,
Well,
so I feel
now
good.
we're
I feel
talking
good.
about January because obviously we're recording this at the end of January. And
Yes,
I did a post this week sticking up for January.
you did.
because because I'm tired of all the negative posts, which of course you absorb about,
Yeah,
oh, January, oh, we're still in January, oh, January's got, it feels like it's got 1,000 days.
yeah.
And it's just like, you know what? I'm fed up with this. I don't dislike January. And as I said, there were 6 other months plus January. There's 7 months in the year that have got 31 days. And it's
Yes.
not just January, and I don't hear anybody complain about any of those months.
No.
And yet you get to January and everybody's doing the, well, I've got a birthday in January. I've got lots of friends who have birthdays in January. And you kind of go, could you just stop? And it's like everybody's saying, oh, you're doing dry January. Well, what about all of us that have birthdays in January? Not that I drink, but you kind of think of that. So I did
Yes.
a post saying, let's hear it for January. And it's a mindset, it's a reframe. It's getting lighter in January.
I
I mean,
know. I
it
know.
gets lighter from the 21st of December. So come on,
Yep.
guys, give January a break, as far as I'm
Yep.
concerned.
Yes.
It's just another month. And it's not, and somebody came back and said, yes, well, payday's a long way away. It's not January's fault you overspent in November, December, and now struggling to get to January's payday. So,
I'm gonna put my hand up here. I don't know whether we said it in the last podcast. I spent £18 on Christmas.
well, there you
That
go.
I spent £18 on Christmas. I tell a lie. I spent a bit off on food as well, but presents and things, gifts, just to the wife.
Well, we
Did you
talked
see the
about
video I did? I gave away some of my wooden things.
Yes,
It
well,
was
we talked about it on
beautiful,
the last
did we?
podcast
I love that.
about how you actually had made them and made the
Yeah.
chopping boards for your daughters and
So
were wrapping that up. No,
So,
I agree
so
with
my
you.
issue with January isn't oh, I've got to pay for all this. I don't. You know how simply I have to live. I have
Yes.
to live,
I
and
mean,
it's great.
admittedly, there's the HMRC, but
Oh yeah,
again,
yeah.
I'm going to stick up here and say if you're organized,
I'm not.
then actually January and the tax man shouldn't be an
I
issue.
know.
So for example, my year end is the same as the tax year, so that's April. And as
Mm,
soon as I've got all my paperwork together, which is usually in May, because I have to wait for a P something or other that comes to do with pensions or what interests or whatever, as soon as that's done, I hit print or I hit copy, I copy my spreadsheet to the email. It goes off to my accountant in May. And I always say to her, can you please get this done by sort of end of July so that A, I'm missing the rush because the accountants themselves say,
I
the
know.
manic rush in December,
Mm,
January is ridiculous. And I give it to her early, and she said, this is great because I've got more time in the summer
mm,
and can sort it out for you. By July, my tax form has been submitted and I know my liability, or I've got an idea of what my liability is going to be for payment come the end of January. So again, I can save ready for that. So
you're
it's
very good, Jill.
stop blaming January. I just think take
Yeah,
responsibility. It's not January's
yeah.
fault.
No, But you know what? You're exactly right. And the one point that you mentioned there is a point that I really love. 21st of December.
Hmm.
It's that tide turning.
Hmm.
And I really do. We've had some rubbish weather lately, but I really do love the fact that you look outside and then you look at your watch or your clock and you go, oh, oh, it's not dark yet. And I think it was about the other night. There was in the last 3 weeks, there was there was still sun around, and it still felt bright. I should say that, not
Mm.
sun around. It's still, and it was like 5 o'clock. It was 5 past 5 or two, and I just thought, this is great. We're on that journey to
Well, I
warmer
commented to
weather.
Clive this weekend, and it was Saturday, I think I was, I can't remember what I was doing, but I was doing something, and I suddenly thought, oh, I haven't pulled the curtains yet. Oh, it's 10 to 5. And I actually commented to Clive saying, oh, it's all, much lighter because normally by
Yeah,
now I'd have drawn the curtains at kind of 10
yeah,
past 4, quarter past 4, because I block out the dark. And here I am, 10 to 5, and I was thinking, oh, I haven't even put the light on yet. And yeah, I'm just about to draw the curtains. So as I say, I'm sticking up for January. Maybe that's because I was born in January or whatever, but I think it's not January's fault that you're broke and struggling to get to a payday. Why is it a surprise that Christmas comes on the
yeah,
25th of December every year? And I think this comes down to money management. And
yeah.
one of my fellow coaches, lovely Elsa is looking at doing finance because kids aren't taught it at school, Jamie. They're not taught how to save. They're not taught how to manage money. They're not taught any of this. And I think the difference is when I was younger, there was no such thing as a credit card.
I know.
So you actually, the only thing you could do if you had a bank account was go overdrawn. And
Yeah,
believe me, if you wanted to go over the overdrawn bit, the bank manager would be contacting you to wrap your knuckles and say,
wow.
could you come in and have a chat? How
And then
times have changed.
they realised actually let people go overdrawn because we get more money for it. So let's not let the bank.
Exactly.
But this is really interesting. We're talking about this. Do you know what I did last Friday? I picked. No, it was yeah, Friday morning, I think.
Mm,
No, it was Thursday. I got my daughter here, my eldest daughter. So we've got the grandson here, who he's lovely. His little face is he's got such a lovely little face, such a happy being. Ellie's happy and he's happy. That's how
mm,
it works, isn't it? Happy mom, happy child.
absolutely.
I got some A4 sheets of paper and I went through my tin. Now I keep a tin under, should I tell this? Oh, it doesn't matter. Under my car seat. It doesn't matter. Nobody will break into my car. Under my car seat with all my change in. So when I get to the petrol station, if I'm a bit organised, because I'm not as organised as you, Jill, I will go, right, I'm paying cash today. So if I get a 20 out and then I go through my tin and go, right, well, if I grab a load of those twos and a couple of ones and a 10, and I can make up another 70 pence or whatever. So
Yeah.
I go to the petrol pump and I put it in. And if I go over 70 pence, that's £20 70 by 3 or 4 pence. It doesn't matter. Go back to the tin, take a few copies out, go in there. And they are so happy to receive the £20 and they haven't got to give a penny back or whatever.
Yeah.
But all this change and they love it. So, but I've got too much. So I got this A4 sheet of paper and I folded it up into a type of envelope and I made 60 pence up. It sounds very Scrooge. It sounds like I'm a Scrooge. Oh, I made 60 pence up in ones, twos, fives, tens, and a 20, I think. 20 pence piece for granddaughter. And then grandson, I did 40 pence
Mm,
in a homemade envelope, folded up and sort of no sticky tape, no
mm,
gluing down, just carefully folded. So that it all works out at a pound. And I said to the eldest daughter, I said, El, this is for the one, this is for the other. Um, because I want them to start understanding cash
mm,
and saving. And I'm not going to be a grandparent that gives them £20 here and £50.
mm,
It's not like that. I'd much rather be there in the early days when money, problem is, as you've just said, money doesn't really seem real nowadays.
mm,
And I wanted to be able to count through and add it up and then say, well, how much has your little brother got? And then he can, I say, actually, what are those two added up to get? So I've got this sort of story of what we can do with this change. And I just think they don't do it enough. They don't do
but
it
also you're
enough.
teaching the maths as well as you go.
Oh, yeah, and she's a bright
You've
sport.
got a little bit
Yeah,
there, but I think this is half the problem is it's a debit card, isn't it? It's a credit card.
yeah,
People don't keep track. I think I was watching, no, I don't think I know we were watching Martin Lewis last week, and he was talking about debt management, how do you manage your debt?
yeah,
And, Clive was quite shocked. I wasn't because I have clients who are 30, 40,000 pounds in debt and don't think twice about it. And Clive was like, that's 17,000. And this one couple had got themselves into £64,000 worth of debt. And you just think, that's surely not just on, buying food or there's those moments in life. that gets you into that sort of debt. No, it was, they felt the need to buy the Christmas presents, and then you buy this, and then you buy that, and then you don't realize what you've got, and then you're on a different credit card, and then you're having to move from 0% to 0%. I just think, oh my God, that's an awful lot of effort. And I think it's because, like you, I was taught at a very young age about money and how to manage money, and you don't buy what you can't afford,
Yeah,
basically. And I also read a book recently, The Psychology of Money. I was just looking at it on my bookshelf. It's called The Psychology of Money. And there was an interesting piece, I think I did share it at some point on Instagram, about actually the best saving is because people say, oh, what are you saving for? And he said, actually, the best form of saving is when you're saving for nothing,
yeah,
but actually, life will always give you that kind of curved ball where you need money in an emergency. For us,
yeah,
that was the washing machine suddenly going bang.
yeah.
I wasn't saving for a washing machine. And he said,
No,
that is the
you
most
say,
important money ever, is the money where you're
yeah,
saving for nothing in particular. And I
you're
thought,
saving. You are saving for a bit of comfort, aren't you? You're
yes,
saving for comfort. You're saving for so that when something does happen, because inevitably something
that's what
does
it was
happen,
saying. Yeah.
you know, there's always a low that follows a high. There's
Yes.
always a high that follows a low. Yes, it might be a bumpy road, but you know all of this because you're the
Yes.
coach. I'm just the woodworker. Um,
Not just the
but
woodworker at all,
but you
Jamie.
know that's what you do, isn't it? There is a very good YouTube channel on, and it's quite scary. And I'm guilty of listening to some of his. He's a very clever man. 7 minute clips, videos, and whatever. From he does like a show in America, Ramsey,
Mm,
the Dave Ramsey show. Oh,
right.
if some of the people in America, oh, but I'm sure it's the same over here,
It is.
but they've got a 60 grand income a year and they're driving around in an £80,000 dollar
Hmm.
car. And he said, what do you think you're doing? And he tells them, like a parent would, or a
Mm,
grandparent may to a grandchild in days gone by, what do you think you're doing? If you're on £60,000 dollars a year, you should be driving nothing higher than a 5 grand car.
yeah.
That's it. You are not something special. You are not this, that, the other. And he'll say to people, so what have you got? And they'll say, well, what have you got in assets? And they'll say, oh, I've got a Harley Davidson, this and a Harley. And he said, well, those are gone. Those have got to go. If you want your life sorted, they've got to go. And he's
It's a guy. There's a guy on Instagram called Ramit, Dave Wright, I think it is. Can't remember now. And also, this is why this book. I am plugging it, but I'm not doing it as an ad. I'm not getting anything for it or sponsorship or anything like that. But the psychology of money looks at all of that and what is it that we
yeah,
do. And it says, you're driving the flash car. Actually, nobody. Quite interesting. Nobody is impressed with your possessions as much as you are.
no,
And actually, what you're looking for is possibly recognition or admiration, and it's filling that hole. I mean, there
yeah,
are people, and I take my own son into that. He loves to collect watches, for example, and he does like a nice car and would love to have an old car, not to show off because that's his real interest. It's
yes,
not look at me,
no,
it's that's my real interest, and I love to explore them and do them up and so on. And I
yeah,
thought that's a really interesting way is, and he related a story, I think, of when he was like a bellboy or a car, in America where they park your cars for you. And he said this guy always came in a Ferrari, and he said, and it was never really looking at him. I would only ever look at the car. He said, I never kind of thought, oh
yeah,
wow, he must be earning a lot to have this car. Although he said actually that was where his lesson started because one day he looked, this guy coming up with this Ferrari every week at this really plush hotel. So one day he came up in a battered car and he was like, I said to him, oh, what's happened to the Ferrari? And he said, basically, I couldn't afford to pay the repayments. So it went. And I think that's again where we kind of forget. You look at people in the cars, and a lot of them are on finance now, and we look thinking, oh, what are they doing that I'm not? It's that horrible comparison where you and I basically just trundle on our own little way, don't
yeah,
we?
yeah.
Lovely. Don't get me wrong. I've got a picture of Ferrari here. I'd like a Ferrari not to show off, but
I
because I've
don't
always loved them. it'd be like you with your
Yes,
chisels or your, as a
yes.
comparison. Okay, mine happens to be under 1,000 or a couple 100,000, but it's that sort of difference. It's
I
not
think
I'm buying it because I want everybody to look at me.
yes. No, I get that. I I think I'm getting to a better place, Jill, because it doesn't matter how much money I feel it doesn't. I want my van sorted. It's a
Mm,
1960 old van. I want to be able to drive that because it doesn't matter how many Ferraris or Aston
mm,
Martins, whatever. When you've got something and you're keeping something going, and there's like six left in the country, that's
that's
hanging on
different.
to it. It's different, yeah. And I
Yeah.
love that little van. I love it's got great curves and things. So somebody said on something, they said, if you've got 30 million now, what would you buy? And I'm just like, okay, it'd be nice to have a couple of cars, but I wouldn't go down the route that the majority would go down.
Mm,
First of all, I'd want a property with a few garages, and then I'd want projects because the car doesn't necessarily make you happy, the
mm.
finished car, because it doesn't matter what happens to that perfect car. As soon as you take it out and a bird poops on it, oh, there's a bird pooped on it.
Yeah.
And then you take it somewhere and oh, look at the state of the tires or what.
Mm,
Whatever, but you still have the same sort of problems, but obviously a bit worse if it's a project. And
yeah.
I like working on things.
Yeah. And I
So
think that that is actually the difference. And that's the comparison site. I mean, it's this, I was thinking about it, about money and what is it people, want. And like we see on this OnlyFans and this recent lady, I don't want to give her any more promotion than she's already had with 1,000 men or whatever
oh
in a
God
day. And
bless
you
her.
just think, what is going on here? Is it because I want the money and I'm boasting, I earn £1 million or whatever on OnlyFans every day? And I think this is really unfortunate. What is it that the money is doing? I understand money is important, don't get me wrong. And all of
Yeah,
us will
you've
always
got to
say,
earn it.
yes, we could do with a
Yeah.
little bit more. But there's a point at which you go, isn't that at what cost? For me, I think that's always my question. At what cost?
I,
And what are you getting from that?
and when is enough enough?
Yeah, we've said that before, haven't we, on a
We have.
podcast? That was one of
There's
our thumbs.
there
When
is
is enough
yes.
enough?
There's only one person I know in the sort of and obviously a lot of these celeb types are very private, but there's only one, and I think her name was Ashlyn something, and she was on Big Brother in the first 3 or 4 years, and she was a model and she was doing all sorts. But there was a sort of catch-up program on her a few years ago, or a couple of years ago, and all the money that she had coming in was invested in property. And it's just
Mm,
like, oh, blimey. And then you think, well, she's got her head screwed on. She's
mm,
so got her head screwed on because she's buying this and she's doing that. And so she probably isn't like some of these that are earning a lot of money every month and whatever a year with this channel. Um, she's probably reinvesting that money in people to do the
mm,
building work, surveyors to do this, estate agents will make some money. So the money stays within, and she's probably not paying an awful lot of tax because she's building up a portfolio. And I was just thought, you've got your head screwed on.
mm.
That is so my worry, I suppose my worry, it's not my worry, it's their thing, isn't it? These girls, these usually girls, it's not men that do all of this. Is Well, what have you got? Once
Mm.
your figure's gone, once your looks are, what is there? What's left of you? What is going to keep you going for the rest? Because if you're doing something now with all this money and you're making savings and you're investing and you're doing great, and that's it, and you've got a plan that I've only got to do this for another 5 years, and then I can get that little small holding and I can get the goats and cats or whatever you and it'll keep me going for the rest of the year. I get all of that. I mentioned cats. Jill's smiling.
Well, I think
It
it
happens.
showed me, but it showed me how our brains work. because the reason I smiled at that point wasn't just because you mentioned goats and cats, but thinking that's how our mind goes, that I'd spend the money and we'd get a little holding and, out in
Yeah,
nature doing
yeah,
stuff. And I was just wondering, all the other people would be thinking, oh no, I'll be buying this and I'll be buying that. And I thought so far, but your mind and my mind goes in the same direction. I think we were talking this weekend, the 83 euro millions jackpot was been won by person in the UK. And I said to Clive, oh, wouldn't it be lovely if you woke up on Saturday morning to find you'd won 83 million? And Clive said, well, yes, but it wouldn't take you long because you'd be giving it all to people and doing this and supporting a
yeah,
charity and, helping your friend out here and doing that there. And I said, but that's it. And again, you're thinking, like you said about that woman, by investing in buying properties and doing them up, she's not just investing in herself, she's investing in all those businesses
yeah, yeah,
underneath. So actually, for me, that's also a share of the
yes,
wealth.
it is.
And,
It is.
we were never huge fans. I used to watch Jeremy Clarkson on Top Gear because of, Jackson used to watch it and I used to watch it with him. Clive was never a fan until we watched Clarkson's Farm. And we were well behind everybody else. We've only just watched all three series. And you really started to appreciate actually him sitting there saying, I've got to go to London, but I'm dreading it. And I'm in my
Mm,
happiest place now. Who would
yeah,
believe after all these
I know.
years, I'm in my happiest place sitting on my tractor, driving up and down the field. And I think, isn't it interesting? And it's that authenticity now that people are finding within themselves
Yeah,
that this is what makes me happy. Even though his farm was struggling, and I know he's got millions, and people will be saying,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, it's easy for him. But it's finding that what makes me happy.
yeah,
And a lot of people believe it's money and things, and as I say, it's not saying that money doesn't help in any shape or form because we all need it. We could all do with a little bit more, and yes, it does make life easier, but how much is enough, as we've said
yeah.
said on other podcasts. But that's
I,
what made me smile because your mind and my mind both went to, well, we'll buy a little small holding. And
yeah, I don't think I do. I mean, I
yeah,
might, but mine would be more so that I could probably do work and teach. And I think if it was happening to me, I think there would be enough property there for me to go, right, I want to develop a woodworking school.
yes, that's the
That would be
difference.
it.
You'd
Yeah,
want a lovely
yep, share
woodworking
it,
school. Yeah. I'd be
share
very
it.
similar. I'd want a small
And
holding. I'd have a few alpacas, but I'd have a group like you've got. I'd want to have a place that you're not charging a huge amount for,
no,
that would encourage artisans to come and set up their workshops,
yeah,
and also that I could run workshops myself and do training and get people outside. And it's just a different way of thinking. God, we started over here and we've ended up talking right down
I want to,
over
two
here.
things. I want to go back to the car thing just briefly.
Yeah.
My little car's going in for an MOT between this podcast, when this podcast comes out, and the next one. And today I'm giving my car a big clean. I cleaned a lot of it yesterday. I did got the vacuum cleaner out at the workshop because I got a vacuum cleaner there. I threw it out the window outside my workshop. So I was vacuuming my car in that vein. Oh, it was great.
Oh,
Today it's having a good clean. But the reason I want to mention my car cleaning is because I've been thinking of cleaning it for the last week or two. It's very, very dirty. I was next to a brand spanking new car the other day, and I looked how filthy it was and thought, and then I started noticing more cars with 24 plates.
mm,
And I was thinking, they don't care like we used to. Anybody years ago that had a brand new car would be on top of it. That car would never really get dirty, wouldn't it? I'm right.
mm-hmm.
We had value. We valued what we had. Now, brand new cars are filthy and dirty, and you just think, what are you doing it for? Because my little old car that's worth 1,500 quid, and you've got something there that's worth 60 or 70,000, and yet put them both in a car park, ignore the number plates. They just look like two
They're just
cars the same.
cars. Yeah, yeah.
It is funny. The other thing I want to go back to, and I've mentioned this before on the podcast, is whenever we mention Jeremy Clarkson, we really should mention Harry's Garage, who
Oh, yes.
Clarkson copied. from his
Yes.
he already copied what his friend up the road, Harry Metcalf, was doing.
Yes.
So I don't know whether you watch Harry Metcalf, Harry's garage, and
Jackson's got it on YouTube, and when he's
yes,
home, we watch
he
it a
is
lot. And how he talks about the cars and goes around the cars and does it in
he's
detail. It's
very, very
fascinating.
good.
Very good.
So, but he
Very
does
good. I
have his
agree.
farm as well, and he'll tell you he did it. You need to watch it this week, this last week, or when it was. His garages every week is um how his farm is every few weeks, depending on what's going on with the farm. It would probably, he'd say, probably get boring if it, but then again, that would be real life to show what's gone on this
That's
week on a
right.
farm. Some weeks hardly anything, other weeks it's non-stop. But he found out a little leaflet from, this was so interesting, a leaflet from the 80s, and the current price for wheat or whatever is exactly the same as it was then.
Wow.
And he's just like, look, we've got to look at this long term.
Mm.
British farming is broken. You need to watch it, Jill. It's so fascinating. All the other bills have gone up tenfold, 20-fold, this, that, the other, but the price they get for
It stayed the
barley
same.
is still that same level. I'm just
Mm.
wow, no
Mm.
wonder. And that's
Yeah.
set by something, somebody. I think it used to be world price. It's world prices.
Mm.
So if we're dealing with third world countries now, or second world countries and first world, yeah, we probably shouldn't be growing because of the cost of living and everything here. But we, as a country, we should be growing all of our as
Mm.
much as we can. Anyhow, you need to watch that. It's a good one. I'll send you
Yeah.
the link in
But
this
again,
evening.
that comes back to something we were just talking about before we got on here, wasn't it? About authenticity. And
Yeah,
I've noticed, and I did do a post, I think, how many businesses are coming off social media.
yeah,
So I'd
yeah,
seen literally three posts in as many days of businesses saying, I've had enough, I'm coming off, I actually want to be with real people.
yeah,
And I was spending all my time on social media. I'm just going to see if I could find it. Yeah, this lady I was just reading to before, she said, as of today, I'll no longer be on social media. Much of my time has gone into building my following and filling my squares, making them perfect. But I've come to realize my business also revolves around Instagram, and my spare time revolves around my squares. It's fast paced, full of fakery and ads, all of which is just not for me. And then she says, she's going to stay on obviously a website and a mailing list. And I love this paragraph. I'm off to live real life, which isn't Instagram, to plant some seeds or water my plants, not stare at a screen. To say we don't even own the rights to our Instagram grids, they could be deleted at any time, and lots of people have had that happen. How
yeah,
much time are we wasting on here? It's a sad thought that maybe all you have to show for your time is your Instagram account. Stay in touch, and maybe I'll see you on a workshop or at a market stall in person. And I'm seeing very similar. I'm talking to a lady this week for my podcast, GillHB and Friends, which will come out the following week. And we're talking exactly about that. She's giving up. She says, I want anonymity. I don't want to be worrying about it. I don't like doing it. And actually, she's going into something very, very different. And for me, I mean, I'm on Instagram. I love Instagram.
yeah,
I don't do a business on Instagram. I must admit, it's not a business. It's just my everyday stuff.
mm-hmm.
It's not kind of curated in any shape or form. This is who I am. This is what you see. I'm not a video person. When I say I'm not a video, I'm not a cameraman or camera woman, should
Mm-hmm.
I say? None of that. And I think that's the difference when I've been going the what I don't like. And I was questioning myself. I think you've done similar, looking at who do I unsubscribe from. I no
Yeah,
longer want to see these very curated reels
mm,
anymore. But to that side, I look at YouTube, and the more I'm looking at YouTube, I'm a bit behind the game, I think, with everybody who watches YouTube. I now understand why people watch YouTube. Now, some
mm,
would argue that is social media because, of course, it's put out by the individual, but it's very different
yeah,
in my book, in my
yeah,
head. So I'm talking for me, it's very different. I see very authentic stuff. It's a great place. Everybody goes, oh, go to YouTube. You'll find somebody who will show you how to do it, which is exactly what you do. I Google and I'll go
yeah,
find somebody. And I mean, like yours, I think there was comments on one of your last videos about how lovely to see your day, how lovely to see what really happens.
Yeah, I mean,
People are really struggling with. And it's so nice that my workshop, I think somebody said, oh, I'm the same. And I wanted to go, this is a typical female brain. You know, I need to start this job. And I think that's what your video was saying. To do this, I've got to clear here. But to clear here, I've
yeah,
got to do that. To do
yeah,
that, I've got to do. So you've got this whole list of jobs that you
yes,
do.
before you can get on with what you want.
And
And
I
I
think,
think, and I
go
think
on.
this is why, Jill, that a lot of these YouTube, Instagram people, they're burnout as well.
Mm.
They're burnout. Why? Because there's so much pressure to actually to do that perfect video. No, you.
Well, the
So
perfect
I just
grid.
need to. Yes, exactly. I just go back to the four main reasons I started YouTube, which was one, to because it was during COVID, to have an outlet and maybe it might bring me some work. And YouTube has brought me some work, so
Mm.
that's okay. The other is if I can get some money off the income from the ads and the way all the AdSense works, that would help, especially if another COVID comes along. So
Mm.
this is all based on that. But you get to the third and fourth reasons, and they are, sharing. I love sharing, and in my sort of with what I do, what I work on, if I didn't have workshops where I have people paying people that pay to come in and do workshops with me, if I didn't have that, which I didn't as much before COVID, um, oh, I've lost my train of thought. If I
Talk
didn't have
about
that, I
YouTube,
wouldn't.
the
Yes,
reasons.
I wouldn't see the similar sort of person to me. I wouldn't
Yeah.
see a woodworker because where are they? Well, they're at work as well, but they're doing the 9 to 5. So they're
Yeah.
not going to come here. So I wouldn't see that. And then the fourth reason, when I'm dead and gone, my family have got something that they can just click on. They can hear my voice. They can see my face. They can go to some of the outtakes and laugh at dad being stupid and whatever. And that is because we touch on this occasionally. Because my dad passed away when I was 11, I've got one photo of me holding his
Mm.
hand. I can't remember his voice. I don't know what he sounds like. There was
Mm.
no video. There was no cine. There was
Mm.
cine camera, but we
But
didn't have a
that didn't
cine
have
camera.
voices.
No, so there is nothing. And
But
this
it's
way,
not just
for
for your
my
own
girls, there is
children.
something, but
I think
also for
it's as much
me.
for the grandchildren as well.
Yeah, exactly,
You know, for
exactly.
other generations that come around. Again, I saw a lady post about she'd been onto Google Earth, and when she looked at her grandmother's address, there's her grandmother standing outside on the
Yeah,
pavement chatting to a
yeah.
neighbour, and somebody else has said, "Oh, if I go to Google, there's my grandfather in the garden. I can see him, and it's like it was yesterday." And so it's all
That's
part of is that a new form of memory building for people? You know, like the old photograph
Yes, I suppose
albums.
it is. Yeah.
As long as somebody keeps that channel going and YouTube keeps going. And who knows when people buy out stuff, or do they say, well,
Well,
if you haven't been live for so, and I mean live as in
that might happen.
posting, if you haven't
Yeah,
posted for so many years, your account is deleted.
but Google is so big; they just keep building and building, and it's
Mm.
creating jobs. It's creating well. It's funny you've just mentioned that because I was talking to my daughter number two the other day, Chloe, and we were chatting about something, and she said, and I was at hers, and she said, "So what was going on when you were young?" And it was a great chat with Chloe. It was lovely because she was going through when I was 5, 7,
Mm.
9, whatever, all these years, and what was going on around me. And we went to Google and she typed something in, and our old house came up, which was a lovely old 5-story mill.
Mm.
And there was somebody has been doing this thing called the Wilkinson collection, and or something like Wilson, I don't know the name. And anyhow, he was a photographer, a guy who just took photographs around where we used to live. And there's some building work going on here. I'll photograph it. There's this going on here. I'll photograph it. And on this photograph of the back of our house, which nobody ever took from this direction because trees grew and gardens grew, so you could never see it from this direction. And it must have been, we've dated, I showed my mom, it's dated to, this photograph must have been taken at around 1972, 73. And there's my dad down in the bottom corner. Chloe just zoomed in and said, I went, when you go a little bit cold
Yeah.
and a little bit chill, and there's my dad, and it looks like, from the back, the stature, hair, and this is this is not a particularly brilliant camera in the early
Mm,
70s, but just the shadowy figure of somebody. Yeah, it's got to be. And the
yeah.
roof was done. The roof was done because when I went in that mill, the first time I remember going in the mill because it was 5 stories high, I walked into the bottom and looked up, and you could see straight out through to the sky. So it was, and my dad restored this old water mill, and it was
I mean,
brilliant.
nowadays you'd be done for GDPR and you've got to block people's faces out and all that
Oh,
sort of thing. And, you can't take a photo and somebody will get upset. What are you taking photographs of this for? And that really, we were watching, I think it was a documentary on Carole King and James Taylor that Clive had recorded and we got round to watching. And we were both sort of saying, oh, I wonder when this was recorded, this actual, I think it was their Troubadour tour in the end, because
mm,
in the end I Googled. And I said to Clive, it must be before about 2012. And Clive sort of said, how are you coming to that conclusion? I said, because look at the audience. There's not one person with a phone filming
uh,
the actual show.
yeah,
Whereas normally everybody's got their phones out and filming. And lo and behold, when I did Google it, it was 2010, which of course was pre
yeah,
smartphones and filming. And I thought, what a difference. Everybody in the audience is really enjoying
yeah,
this,
yeah.
watching it without the phone, without having to take photographs. So anyway, some things have got better, some are going in the other direction.
Uh, it'll all level
It'll,
itself out, won't it?
yes,
It'll level
yes.
itself out.
I mean,
Yeah,
in the scheme of things, just to finish off in the scheme of things, it's very early days with all this new technology, and I
yeah.
think everybody was very excited and leapt on it. Like when Facebook first started, everybody was, oh yeah, yeah, I'm catching up with friends, and now people have come off Facebook. I rarely
Mm,
use it. I use it really for our community village stuff, and a couple of things. But I'm also thinking, do you know what? I can do without that. I could come off it as well because I rarely, rarely go on there. I can't remember the last time I posted something, but from the early days of it to now, it's very different. I think that's maybe where people are getting with Instagram and I don't know, is it Snapchat and TikTok and all the rest of it that we go through the cycle that then says, And in fact, I'm doing a webinar tonight because we're recording this on a Monday. I'm doing a webinar with my lovely friend Jenny Kovacs, who's, how do you run a business off social media? And I thought, oh, this is going to be interesting. So I'll report back, Jamie. Have
mm.
to remind me to report back. So I think that's about it, isn't it, this
I
week?
think so. I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah,
You're
all
off to
good.
keep doing whatever you're doing. I'm still busy willow weaving. So
Oh, I love your willow weaving. It's great.
thank you. Well, it's practice, 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 except I'm making all these lovely birdhouses, which I want to practice. But now I don't need, four birdhouses. So I'm doing
How?
one. I am doing one as a raffle prize for a neighbour's
Oh, well, there
um,
you go.
charity event that she's running. So I am making one, and two friends have asked for one. So yeah, they're practice ones, but they're definitely getting better.
How did your bird watching thing go? Just quickly,
Oh,
briefly.
well, that was literally
2 robins?
hilarious.
Was it two
We got
robins?
we got a bit more than two robins because it
Well
brightened
done.
up halfway through. So we got some great tits, we got some blue tits, we got a chaffinch. Now the day before we'd seen beautiful bullfinch in the
Yeah,
garden. We'd had magpies the day before. But
yeah.
yeah, that
The
was it.
weather
And the
was,
last kind of it was awful. But of course we chose that hour.
yeah.
So it might look to the RSPB like
There's no
nobody's got any
birds around.
birds in their garden.
No. Lynn went and did it, and she came in after half an hour and said nothing.
Exactly.
I was like,
Anyway,
okay,
it was good
weather.
fun, and we had a good laugh watching the rain pelting down and the occasional robin and a few birds, but nothing like we would normally get in the garden, which is often the way when we do the bird watch.
Mm,
We usually have loads of them in and out my birdhouse. They love that feeder. Can't tell you how
yeah,
much they love that feeder. So it wasn't
good
a
stuff.
huge success, but Clive will be entering the stuff today, what we did see anyway. So thank you
Wonderful.
for asking, Jamie. Anyway, thank you to all our listeners. I know we have some that listen to every podcast that we do, and
Yes,
thank you for sticking
I
with
know.
us. We're very authentic. This isn't scripted, is it, Jamie? When we're
Can you
talking about
imagine?
authenticity, and as you can tell, we just say it as it comes. And I don't worry too much about the thumbnails. I do one, just for my website and to put on Instagram so people know we're here. But thank you very much for listening. And if you'd like to comment, join in with the conversation, have any questions for us, by all means, let us know. Jamie, you have a good 3 weeks. We'll be well on our way through February when we chat again. So yes, let's hear it for January.
One last push.
One last push for January. And yeah, I'll speak to you in 3 weeks.
Yeah. Right. See you, Jill.
Bye.
Bye.